of labor that you will pay this person the minimum amount for that level of employment. Like somebody said, 4 levels. You may pay the person who is a beginner software developer at the first level, maybe second level. If it requires master's degree or high levels of experience, it may be level 3 or 4. It depends on the job and circumstances. And also the wage will be specific to that location. So if it's San Francisco Bay Area where I'm from, the wage will be higher than it will be in the middle of US like Nebraska or somewhere else, which is like going to Shamoga or something. You know, you get paid more here in Bangalore probably, right? Same concept. So, anyway, there's several implications that come with prevailing wage, but I just want you to be familiar with what that term means if you don't already know. That's something we could discuss for long periods of time. It's a complicated subject. That's a helpful, I guess, definition that summarizes what we just talked about. Service centers. This would describe the processing units for the immigration service, where most of the H-1B and non-blanket L-1 applications are going to be filed. It will also be where you send an extension application, like you were asking, can you extend an I-94? Yes, if you're in the U.S., you would file for an extension of your status at a service center in the U.S. There are 4. One is in California, there's another in Nebraska, Texas, and Vermont, which is a state on the East Coast above New York. A spouse. Do we all know what a spouse is? You'd be surprised, you know, how many people don't really know because they think they're married or something. You know, in the United States, there's a concept called common law marriage. You've been with a person for 10 years, living, but you never had a ceremony. Sometimes the government just says, hey, that person is considered married, but you're not really for immigration purposes. And what about 2 domestic, kind of like, you know, modern relationships, 2 people who just live together? No. Same sex? No. Right? All of those things, no. A spouse is somebody who, under U.S. law, has been engaged in a legal marriage, and the United States recognizes legal marriages in almost every country, unless it's some kind of a marriage that might not be typical of the United States, like maybe polygamous marriage. That's not allowed. USCIS is the abbreviation for the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. This name, this acronym, USCIS, has undergone a few generations of evolution recently. It was known as BCIS, and you'll see that referred to even in their own website. They haven't updated most of it. Even in some of my materials, occasionally you'll see BCIS because I wrote these things sometime a few years back when that was the official acronym, which was Bureau of Immigration and Citizenship Services. And INS, which is the one that everybody must know because that's the one that's in all the movies and that's the one people still use generically to describe the Immigration and Naturalization Service. But now it's USCIS, or if you want to be even cooler, CIS. Now, general visa process. I'm going to talk briefly about some of the overview. Change of status. That's a concept that I talked about just briefly when I mentioned student visas and being in the U.S. as a B1 or some other kind of visa holder. You can change status. This means that you are converting from one type of temporary visa to another. Okay? To be eligible for that type of a process, you must be in the U.S. with a legal visa status. You've got to be eligible for the new visa that you're looking for. Whatever kind it is, you must qualify for that visa naturally. You would file the application on time, sometime before your I-94, your status expires. And that you deserve this type of visa based on, you know, the merits of your good attitude and all of the other things that matter about being a good human being. Extension of stay, as opposed to change of status. That means you're going to extend the status that you currently have. So I'm H-1B, I'm going to extend my status as an H-1B. I'm going to extend my stay in the United States for a period of time. If I'm a B1, I can also sometimes extend my status or my stay in the U.S. So this is the term that immigration lawyers use to describe the extension process, extension of stay. Visa types. Generally, you've got 2 main visa types. Does anyone know? Immigrant and non-immigrant, that's right. Immigrant means? Green card, permanent resident, somebody who wants to stay permanently in the U.S. So there's a visa category for that. And of course there are temporary. Temporary visas, notice there's two types indicated, non-immigrant temporary visas, which are this alphabet soup here. Has anyone ever eaten alphabet soup in this room? Do you know what I'm talking about? In the U.S. there are noodles, they make like a shape of a letter, and they cook that in a soup, and when you eat it, it has the letters, and sometimes they serendipitously fall into like order, you know, you eat the word or something. Anyway, this is like an alphabet soup for the different visa categories. Non-immigrant cannot have immigrant intent here. Any of these visa categories, common that you might know, the B, the F, H-1B1, which is not the typical H-1B for most people. This is for Chile and Singapore nationals. H-2 occasionally, H-3 you might hear, J-1 visas. Some of these are others that you could occasionally hear about. TN is for, anyone know? TN is Canadian nationals and Mexican actually. Anybody who is north or south of U.S. directly, that was a treaty devised by the U.S. back in the 90s for a certain visa category. But these temporary visa holders, the E, the E1, 2G, H1B, L, O for superstars, the O visa is outstanding people. Those are O for outstanding. These are people who can have the intent to stay in the U.S. and nobody's going to give them a hard time when they come in. And then there are permanent visas or immigrant.